President Trump has announced 50% tariffs on almost $20 billion worth of Canadian imports. That's despite an existing free trade agreement between the US, Canada and Mexico. The move escalates a trade dispute with the US's neighbour and affects imports from Canada, including wine, dairy products, cement, furniture, fishing rods, swimming pools, clothing, wigs and ice hockey equipment. Now, the charges are due to take effect on the 19th of August, though energy, potash and critical minerals are exempt. The US president is attempting to circumvent a Supreme Court ruling this year that many of his tariffs imposed under emergency powers are illegal. He's therefore using an obscure provision of the 1930 Tariff Act, apparently for the first time. Washington accuses Ottawa of discriminating against American cars, dairy products and alcohol. Canada says many of its measures are in retaliation for US tariffs. US Trade Representative Jameson Greer accused Canada of going too far, declaring that Canada, unlike other partners and allies, continues to retaliate against the United States for its efforts to rebalance trade and protect US industry in national security-sensitive sectors. Well, the Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, says he spoke with President Trump on Tuesday and he said they'd agreed to intensify negotiations. Mr. Carney said he wants a deal that addresses all critical sectors. Earlier, he wrote, "This trade dispute has raised costs for families, particularly in the US. Canada stands ready to engage intensively to address outstanding issues with the US to the mutual benefit of our citizens." Sean Mallen is a political commentator based in Toronto. Welcome, Sean. For those of us who don't follow these things closely, this looks like it's just popped up out of nowhere. Just talk us through why this is happening now.
Well, it is kind of a surprise, but given the way things have gone over the past year and a half, one should never be surprised at anything that Mr. Trump does. It is thought to be related to the ongoing trade talks to renew the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement. The U.S. decided to not renew it as of the July 1st deadline, and so negotiations are supposed to be ongoing. They've been going more earnestly with Mexico over the past few months. Canada has been slower to join, and the thinking is that this is likely a kind of preemptive blow by Trump to kind of set down a marker to try to intimidate Canada into making further concessions in these upcoming trade negotiations.
Okay, so less about the Liberation Day tariffs, more about these ongoing talks about an existing trade deal, which Trump today, many of the goods that Trump today announced 50% tariffs on, are already covered by an existing US-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, which, as you say, is being renegotiated. All of which begs the question, well, if you have a deal in place at the moment, why have it if you're just going to say, well, I don't care about that, this is going to happen in 30 days? These are not the actions of someone negotiating in good faith.
Well, that is an excellent question, Phil, because that is the position of the government of Canada, that these are illegal tariffs, that they do violate the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement. But again, this is a reality in dealing with Donald Trump, that deals don't necessarily mean anything. He's going to just listen to the most recent person who's spoken to him about one irritant or another, and that in some he is not a particularly reliable trade partner, as the rest of the world has discovered over the period of his second time in office. I should say that Prime Minister Carney has spoken to Mr. Trump this morning, and Mark Carney, and has said his position is that this is just going to be part of the ongoing negotiations. Mr. Carney has, throughout Mr. Trump's term, taken a very measured approach to each one of these eruptions, and he's just going to say that these are ongoing negotiations. We will carry on, and if you don't like the fact that the Canada and many Canadian provinces decided not to import U.S. wine and whiskey, then that's going to have to be part of the overall trade agreement. This is all part of the ongoing negotiations. In other words, he's not Prime Minister Carney's not rushing into any quick agreement that might not be a good one, as many other countries have discovered in this Trump 2.0 term.
So what do you expect to happen in 30 days when these 50% tariffs are due to kick in?
Well, as we know, Mr. Trump has not always been consistent in carrying through with his threats. So they might happen, they might not. They're a relatively small part of the Canada-U.S. trade relationship, roughly 2% of what we trade back and forth. Overall, in this past year, Canada's economy has weathered the storm pretty well. It has not been growing at a great pace, but has managed to stay out of recession. That said, his tariffs, particularly on aluminum and the auto industry and forestry and steel, they have hurt those sectors quite badly. So what we're likely to see is just again measured approach, carry on with the trade negotiations, and see what's the best deal that Canada can get.
And if those tariffs do happen in 30 days, would you expect that measured approach to continue, negotiations to continue, or would you expect Canada to retaliate?
Mr. Carney was cagey on that point this morning. He said that they're considering all options in response to those tariffs. His record to date has not been to escalate the retaliatory tariffs that Mr. Trump is complaining about. They were brought in last year when he announced the initial tariffs against Canada, but he's waited until now to retaliate against our retaliation. The response by Mr. Carney so far has been not to up the ante, to try not to enrage Trump any further, try to take this measured, careful approach in speaking with him. So it is, I guess that's my way of saying further retaliation is not impossible, but the record to date under Mr. Carney has been just to play the long game and carry on with the negotiations, see what you can get.
I'm intrigued by the Canadian approach to dealing with Donald Trump on these issues. China and Canada were two of only a few countries that retaliated to Trump's initial Liberation Day tariffs. We can see how China and the EU, they have the economic heft to stand up to the United States. But what was it about Canada? What does Canada have that made it decide that it was not going to dance to Donald Trump's tune?
Well, he has effectively enraged Canadians, which is not an easy thing to do. Really, Mr. Carney has a very strong mandate, a lot of support for taking this approach, for not bowing to Mr. Trump's every single demand. His polls still remain quite strong in taking this approach. Quite a contrast, I might say, with Mr. Trump's poll numbers in terms of support from the United States. So the response has been, the term has been elbows up, this hockey term, to basically keep your elbows up when going into the corners, when fighting for the puck. In other words, not back down. And so far, it has seemed to pay off, as we've seen other countries who made those quick agreements with him ended up regretting them. And the other element with Canada is most of the tariffs did not apply to Canada because most things were covered by the Canada-U.S. Trade agreement. As I said, those four sectors, forestry and steel and aluminum, and the auto industry have been damaged. But overall, the economy is hanging in. So in some, Canadians seem inclined to just not back down in the face of this. And there have been some, they can hurt, the United States can hurt Canada far more than Canada can hurt the United States, but there have been impacts. Canadian visitors to the United States are down almost 30% over the past year. And that's a cost of about $4.5 billion to the U.S. tourism industry. And the measures to ban, for example, Kentucky bourbon from the shelves of liquor stores in some Canadian provinces, that has really hurt that industry. And the wine producers in California are also hurting because they can't sell to major markets in Canada anymore. So it has had an impact.
Right. Aren't these exactly the sorts of disputes that the WTO, the World Trade Organization, is supposed to adjudicate? If we even set aside the fact that everybody involved knows that Donald Trump is breaking the rules of his own deal. Once the rules of a deal are broken, we have the WTO there to adjudicate. But it seems to have been oddly silent for the last year or so, couple of years.
Well, I'm not afraid, lawyer Phil, but my understanding is that the Canada-U.S. trade agreement would probably supersede the WTO rules in this case, because they're country-to-country direct relationships. But I suspect what's happening with the WTO is Trump will never listen to it anyway. So that's what we're faced with, and they're leaving it to the Canada and Mexico and other countries who have to deal with the U.S. to try to deal with them directly, because you are not dealing with a reliable partner with Donald Trump, and you have to just cope the best you can in the face of his frequent eruptions.
And so the US Supreme Court, which every so often has a go at controlling the US president, it ruled this year that many of those Liberation Day tariffs were applied illegally. So now the Trump White House has dusted off this Section 338 of the 1930 Tariff Act, which apparently has never been tried before. I won't ask you to explain that act, but just to comment on the fact that if this is successful, then Canada will not be the only one that the United States uses this against.
Yes, Trump's trade people have been saying right from the beginning, right from the day that they lost that Supreme Court decision, that they will be seeking other means of imposing tariffs, and this appears to be the one of the opening salvos in that regard. So I think other countries can certainly expect some new tariffs under, shall we say, novel means, as Mr. Trump is using in this case. And again, even this one, as we've seen, never, as you said, never been used before, very likely to be challenged in court. But that doesn't seem to stop Mr. Trump, whose favorite word, of course, is the word tariff. I mean, we saw even a couple of days ago, he was threatening tariffs against Canada because of the smoke from wildfires that has been polluting the skies in the northeastern United States as well, which is, again, a novel concept of imposing tariffs because of wildfires. Wildfires likely caused by climate change, because they're caused by lightning strikes in dry forests in the far north of Canada, far beyond any forests that are actually managed by Canadians. So it's a bit rich for the president, who claims climate change is a hoax, to try to impose tariffs on a country that's suffering from wildfires caused by climate change.
Good talking to you, Sean. Thanks so much for joining us. Canadian political commentator Sean Mallen.